Hey, welcome to the Swine Time Podcast here at Pipestone. I'm your host, Dr. Spencer Wayne. I'm one of the staff veterinarians here at Pipestone, one of the owners in Pipestone Holdings, along with one of my partners today for the Swine Time Podcast. And my guest today is Adam Schelkopf. Adam, what is your title?
Thanks, Spence, for having me here. Title would be Health Director for the Management Company.
Health Director for the Management Company. Yeah, sorry for a stuttering introduction there, but Health Director for the Management Company. And we have people that have areas of control or authority within our group. And it's a little bit of overlap because then I work with another guy that's in charge of our business here and another guy that's in charge of just the client relations. And so you are the management company, specifically our managed sow farms, that you would govern all the health effort for that. So you see our managed sow farms, plus you also see a lot of your own clients as well that are taking pigs out of these units and even pigs from not out of these units. Fair enough?
I still have a number of veterinary responsibilities to clients and farmers outside of the management company, but do spend a portion of my time in the management company. So it's enjoyable to get to see a number of different aspects of production.
Yeah. Hey, before we get into that, Adam, you were on our podcast here a year and a half ago, something like that. And
it's been a while.
Yeah, it'd be similar to what we did then. It'll be a health update. But in the last year and a half, you've had some personal changes in your life. I mean, nothing bad, good stuff. So why don't you report on what's going on in your life if you don't mind?
Yeah, just a little personal note. My wife and I welcomed a son here just before Christmas of last year. So Nolan is now approaching 8 months.
Nolan.
Uh-huh.
Texas Rangers fan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yep. So we've thoroughly enjoyed that. It's definitely life-changing and something to look forward to.
Good. Yeah. Are you sleeping at night? Or maybe you are, but is Nicole?
I try not to talk about it too much because I know we're very fortunate. Nolan has been a very good sleeper.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I remember when, especially our first child, I remember thinking, man, this is a great kid. She sleeps through the night like right away. And my wife reminded me on and on and on. It's like, no, she doesn't sleep through the night. You sleep through the night. She gets up and does the work. But
yeah, we get that a lot. That the first one sleeps through the night. The next one, look out. It could be a terror. So
yeah, good. Well, anyway, congratulations on that. And you might have even gotten married since the last time we recorded.
That's 2 years. I think it was just before then.
Okay.
Time flies.
Yep. Time does fly. Okay. So thanks for coming on the podcast today. The topic would be health, and trying to pin that down a little earlier today. You and I were talking, and it was like, health what? Well, it could be a long conversation about everything, but we could probably focus today on, for sure, pig health, but the sows and the growing pigs and what we're seeing internally and what maybe people are seeing in the industry and just some general commentary. So if we're starting there with the sows, what's going on with health?
Yeah. It's hard to wrap that topic of health just into a couple statements. So you try and take a very high level approach to it, Spencer. It's easy to reference the management company first because I know that very, very closely, and we have a tremendous amount of data on what that system has done from a health management standpoint over time. And the obvious one that we talk about is PRRS infection, and certainly this period of time coming into fall has historically been one that's worse for PRRS virus infections as we look over time. We're fortunate in the management company over the last couple of years that our performance in regards to reducing the incidence or new infections of PRRS virus has drastically gotten better over the last 2 years, with about 10% or less of our farms breaking with PRRS, which is historically far better than we had fared in years past. A number of aspects that we would attribute that reduction to, but honestly, just compounding interventions over time, and a lot of research and tremendous effort by those in the industry that have guided in terms of different biosecurity interventions or different aspects to control.
List them out right now, because I was thinking about this earlier today. Why is it better? We did certain things. So what's top one? What would it be?
So chronologically, Spencer, let me start that way. It's a little easier to think about. One of the most recent ones that we've certainly adopted and embraced, and honestly, I believe, and our team would believe, seeing a drastic reduction in PRRS virus incidence is feed mitigation. We've utilized feed mitigants or compounds in feed to help control or reduce the amount of spread of virus. That's been in place for 2 to 3 years now, and it correlates extremely well to that reduction that we've seen over the past 2 years.
Yeah, and the listening audience may say, oh, feed mitigation. What's that? What is that?
Yeah, it may be blends of organic acids or formaldehyde-based compounds or components that you put in feed that kill virus, prevent transmission of virus in feed. it's a nebulous subject of whether virus actually moved in feed, or I should better say how much, how many times farms may have been infected with feed. We've proven clearly that virus does move in feed. How many times it infects farms is a challenging thing to note. And so we adopted feed mitigation to basically learn and say, we're going to put it in and we're going to see if we can reduce infections and try and answer that question. And that has been true over the past couple of years. And I think it will continue to play out.
Okay. So
that's one.
Most recent one. Go to the next one.
Prior to that, and one of the faster adoptions, I would say over the past, what's been 15 years now, is air filtration. Virus definitely moves in air. Air filtration reduces infection rates in areas where there's any sort of swine density. And so more and more of the management company farms today, I think it's probably 70% or maybe even 80% of the management company farms today are under air filtration. And that has drastically helped over years, both improve biosecurity on farms that are in high dense areas, as well as prevent for the future. Farms that may not be in high dense pig areas today, but may find themselves surrounded by finishers in the future.
Yeah. Yes. And I would say I would rank those two things for myself. I can think of one more thing.
The other thing, location. What is the price of location, Spencer? There's certainly challenges as you get away from the corn belt or the pig belt or whatever it is. You put sow farms in more remote locations. Harder to find labor, harder to find a whole host of things. That being said, how much can you pay for good health at a sow farm?
Yeah.
And to me, that number continues to get bigger and bigger. We can afford to pay more for having a high health sow farm that's not going to break with whatever the disease may be over time. And so location is something that we've strategically encouraged farmers to invest in, and it has paid dividends.
Yeah. So just to kind of frame it up, sow farm in northwestern Iowa, sow farm in central South Dakota or Missouri or someplace safe. Okay. One, if the sow farm construction and the land and everything is equal, which it might be close to, then you have transportation that goes against you, because now you got to get them back to where all the corn is and where your farm is it's being fed. But then labor might be more expensive. But then there's $2 in transportation, maybe an extra 50 cents in labor because it's harder to staff out there. What are the negatives of that? Maybe the corn costs a little more because of the basis is slightly different there if it's really out of the way. But then the benefit is I don't have a sow farm that's breaking with PRRS, and my pig cost as a wean pig is potentially $10 cheaper, at $5 to $10 cheaper on any given year because I'm not dealing with PRRS breaks. And then my growing pig is $10 to $15 more valuable or better because it's not fighting PRRS. Those are two different costs. You might have a $10 production at the sow farm cost plus another $15. It might be $35 a pig difference, and that's offset by $3 in extra transportation or a slightly more feed cost or something out there. It's not even close.
It's really important to study those economics, and you use very big numbers, and they're probably right, Spencer. We can certainly understand very quickly what the cost of a PRRS break and what the cost of that does to the wean to market aspect, and the transport is pennies compared to the value of continually producing a PRRS negative pig year over year over year.
So this is where producers would say, I can't own my sows over there. It's too far away. No, it's not too far away. It'll be better over there.
It's getting over the mental hurdle, the perception that my sow farm may not be right next to me, or that I can't see it or touch it or whatever it is. Getting over that mental hurdle, clear economic benefit.
Yeah, and you talked about the health tax in the past. Mm-hmm. This is a tax that, like, you don't realize the tax is there, but you're paying it all the time. Once you realize the government's taking your tax out of your pocket, you start getting mad. Same thing here. Once you realize I'm giving this up, you would start getting mad. But a lot of producers don't even realize they're paying it.
No, it's the point that I would certainly say, as we've continued to put discipline on ourselves and help our farmers with very, very good data sets and good financials to truly understand what that health tax is and what the cost of those certain decisions are, it is paramount to have good data and good financials to completely understand the picture and be able to quantify how much I can invest in those sorts of decisions, Spencer.
Right. Okay, so we beat that one up pretty good, but it is the big one. It's just not getting PRRS. It's kind of like, how do I not get PRRS this year? And that, three things that have significantly moved the needle for us at least.
Yeah, and I think I talked about this a little bit last time, Spencer. When you say health, PRRS is the first one I've referenced, the first one we go to, but we've tried to take steps beyond that and say there's other things that we should think about, whether it's influenza, whether it's mycoplasma, whether it's enteric coronaviruses, PED and TGE, whether it's some of these high pathogenic bacteria. All of those are compounding when we think of bad health. And we shouldn't think of health in a singular focus on just PRRS virus. We should attack all of those. And I'm proud of the direction, at least, that for the management company and the way that we think about tackling health. We try and tackle all of those buckets.
Yeah.
PRRS is one that's ongoing, but today, more farms in the company are negative for mycoplasma, more wean negative, influenza negative wean pigs, more have less high path bacteria today. So we've made progress on all of those initiatives over time.
Yeah, and I'm watching you and our group march through that. It's systematic. How do we get rid of this? How do we knock it down? Putting a plan out there and then executing on it. And never 100% perfect, but it moves the needle. So
it takes a lot of smart individuals to help understand and not get defeated, right? You're going to have breaks from time to time. We know that. We'll go forward. We'll take a step backward. But a lot of smart individuals on the team pushing and asking the right questions and exploring these other avenues of if we break here, what can we learn and how can we move the needle forward?
Okay. Now, oddball stuff. We're talking about horses, zebras, or stalking horses, or whatever. There's something hiding in the distance that may be real or may not be real. I'm thinking of PCV3, sapovirus, sapellovirus. There's these other viruses that if the producer's listening, he's thinking, "What the heck are you talking about?" And the veterinarian's listening, he might be thinking, "Yeah, I don't believe in that, or I do." How have you approached that for some of these oddball things?
Spencer, if you go back to the time when I was probably still in diapers or something around there, and right, there's many that would have experienced mystery swine disease. There were many that didn't know if that was real or not. So I look at those diseases today and say, I'm not smart enough to know whether they're real or not. Certainly the pathologists and diagnosticians help us understand presence of virus or lesions it may cause. Tying that to an outcome can be difficult in its early phases, and that was the case with probably every new emergence of disease over time. And some of those, whether it was PRRS virus or PCV2, they became very real, and we all know that today. So whether it's SAPO or PCV3 or some of these other ones, there's certainly a lot of evidence to pay attention to it. Tying it to an outcome and an intervention to help it is what becomes a little bit cloudy. And so I think, at least within our group, we try and take steps to understand exactly the complete picture, do appropriate diagnostic workups and surveillance, and not get carried away on either side of it, either burying our head in the sand or going over a waterfall and blaming everything under the sun on certain things.
Okay, so you're not convicted, any of the ones I just mentioned, that there's some real true emerging disease. You talk about the big ones, mycoplasma, PRRS, flu. Any of these other ones sliding up as being significant at the sow farm level?
I think there's certainly cases that demonstrate their presence and demonstrate an impact. The cause and effect part can sometimes be difficult. And so there's clear evidence that potentially and should be paid attention to. There's other, I would say, cases or evidence that maybe doesn't support it. So I'm always not necessarily clear on those specific ones.
Okay. I'm always remembering one time we did next-gen sequencing where we had we basically took a sample from the barn and said, what's in there? And they tested for all the viruses and all the bacteria they could find. And it wasn't like they found two. They found hundreds of things where then you stopped and said, wow, there's hundreds of species of microorganisms, viruses, and bacteria that are found in a pig. Which ones are important? Maybe two, or I don't know what they are. Many are just living there. And so it's an easy thing to start thinking you got problems because you can find them on a test. It's a much harder thing to say they're actually a problem.
I think the next gen is really cool technology. I look forward to its adoption. And in any of these new technologies, right, pricing will come down. Adoption and understanding of those will help us. And specifically with PRRS virus, you've done as much as anybody, Spencer, at looking at sequences and dendrograms. And with ORF5, we certainly have limitations with ORF5. Have we tried to adopt more of the next-gen sequence? I think it will give us a better window into, hey, these viruses are the same or these are not the same, and we can track regional spread and a number of different aspects. And even within a break, we have the same virus or we have a mutation of the virus or whatever it is. Next-gen is definitely going to open a pathway to understand better.
Right. Okay, so moving off of sows, unless there's something else at the sow farm level you think is important to comment on, we're sending these wean pigs out of the sow farms. They go to the nurseries, finishers, wean to finish barns. Anything they're dealing with this year that's different than last year? What's the hot thing of today that at least you're seeing?
I think it's it's always easy for me to default talking about the sows first because I truly fundamentally believe that that has to be the foundation of what starts the health in the weaner market phase. If we can influence at the sow level, we can prepare pigs better for the weaner market phase, and that will translate to better performance data and economics over time. So it's easy to start as foundation.
Mm-hmm.
As we specifically look to the wean to market phase, starting with a high health pig definitely sets you up for better success. That being said, in wean to market phase, you're bound to have challenges from whatever it may be from a pathogen over time. And certainly I think PRRS virus still continues to be the most plaguing challenge that we have both in sows and wean to market across the industry.
Mm-hmm.
144 viruses, lineage 1C, and other viruses out there, other strains of PRRS virus continue to wreak havoc in the wean to market phase. They have for as long as I've been here.
Yeah. It's funny that 144 lineage 1C has not been displaced or replaced by some new hot one. I think it's like all these viruses come out and they're terrible and then they get better over time. Probably I've seen a lot more recently that's, it's a lineage 1.4 or lineage 1C variant 144. It should be terrible. Well, no, actually that's kind of normal. There's a lot of wimpy ones out there now that there maybe weren't a few years ago. Maybe not.
When 144 was first talked about in the lineage 1C, it seems we've had some potential attenuation of that virus and maybe some lessening of the impact of that virus over the last 1 to 2 years or whatever that is, maybe a natural course of history of those viruses. Mm-hmm. I would tend to agree with that, Spencer. There's kind of a little bit of a lessening impact compared to what its initial challenges may have been. The wean to market phase, it's definitely still pretty rough. And historically, again, in the fall, you're going to get more movement of virus, whether it's through manure pumping or cold weather or whatever it is. And so we'll see what happens this fall, but past years have not been fun for producers out in the field.
What about, moving away from PRRS,
Mm-hmm.
the gut health associated, I think, a lot with Duroc sired animals that have really kind of flooded the industry in the last 5+ years, have really become the majority animal out there when it maybe was a bigger mix before. More E. coli was seen, and then I think that's gotten better, but what would you say on the gut health side of things for pigs and how we're dealing with it?
It feels like E. coli has gotten better. I know that's a tough statement because it feels like it, and that's the best that we have. There's certainly the diagnostic labs would have cases of E. coli, and you can measure different outbreaks in a number of different ways, but it feels like from within our group, we've seen less of it this year than we have in past years. I think there's been a lot of interventions put forth at trying to address it. So whether that's through use of vaccine, through use of modification and nutrition platforms to be more quote unquote gut friendly, whether that's products that acidify the water or whatever else it is, a lot of interventions to try and control this E. coli issue. And I know there's genetic companies that have worked on trying to select for pigs that necessarily may not be as susceptible to E. coli. And I do think that's a pathway forward to help if we know that we have issues where sires may be more susceptible. Well, if we can select for those that are not, that's a nice pathway forward.
Yeah.
So all of those tools are great tools, Spencer, and I think the adoption of those in certain scenarios, plus additional sanitation and wean-to-market biosecurity, all of those things have been helpful at reducing over time.
Yeah. What about products? Any new vaccines, any new antibiotics that are available today that are just, you and I might have talked about in passing a month ago, but maybe the listening audience wouldn't be aware of.
Antibiotics is the easier one. We don't have a lot of new antibiotics coming to the marketplace, Spencer. And so that's why I think it's important for us as an industry to keep putting pressure on alternatives to antibiotics. Management, environment, sanitation, wean-to-market biosecurity, all of those are very, very important because we're not getting a lot of new tools in terms of antibiotics.
Right.
And so, it goes to, do we have preventatives, vaccines? There's definitely some areas that some of the pharmaceutical companies are trying to help us in that space. And I would say other, like the water acidification. I think there's been a lot of attention put towards water acidification. And our intern this summer did a really cool benchtop study trying to look at the effect of acidification on the growth of bacteria. And so, Carly Bates did a great job in Independence looking at that. So I look forward to seeing some further of that study.
Okay. I'm thinking about antibiotics. There aren't any new types of antibiotics, but one thing that just did seem to happen this year was a lot of generics came out. And so for those that are looking for whatever product they might have been using before, it's the one place I can think of in all of my life where the costs have seemed to come down, where they've actually dropped because of competition. with generics. So if you're looking for antibiotic use options, there's more because there's more generics. That's, I think, a true thing over the last 5-6 months.
Absolutely true. It seems cost has gone up everything in every space that we look at, and especially the commodity space, right? And which just translates to the more pigs that we can get to market, the lower we can, the better we can make the cost.
Right. So I've got one client, I won't name him, but he lives out in South Dakota. It's a smaller farm, but it's a Prop 12. They market through a special company where it's no antibiotics ever. There's some other housing constraints and things they do, but he didn't even think about losing money this year because he had all these premiums coming in. But the one thing he did was he didn't use any antibiotics. And it's a fair to finish farm. It's not like it's some clean all in all out facility. It's like, no, it's a static population or a dynamic population that's constantly feeding and emptying. And he does incredibly well. You think, okay, he runs a tight ship, very clean, safe location. These safe pigs you're talking about from some of our managed farms that are, man, you don't pay that health tax because you get a really healthy pig. If they go to parts of Iowa, I would say you've got no chance of trying to do no antibiotic ever production because there's too much pressure from the neighborhood. That's pretty fair. I'm thinking, like you said, we got to get away from antibiotic use, but what's possible? I don't even know what's possible in some of the places we do raise pigs because of the local pressure.
I have examples of that too, Spencer, where there's producers that their operation isn't antibiotic free, but they certainly have groups and they have portions of their pigs throughout the year that they'll go to market antibiotic free. Yeah. Why? Not because that's their aspiration necessarily because of a program, but because they use antibiotics when there's a need for them. And if there isn't a need, then they're not using antibiotics. And it's because they get this recipe, right, of starting with a high health pig, having good management in their wean to market phase, and having all these other aspects done correctly, well, it just reduces the need. Yeah. That's where farmers need to aspire to get to. And geography can be challenging if you're in very high pig dense areas.
Yeah, but it starts with a good pig. If you don't have a good pig, don't even think about it.
Absolutely. And it starts with it also has to have good management through the growing phase.
Yeah. Okay, we ran out of time. I'm looking over the clock. We're at 22 minutes. So thanks for coming. I don't know if you've got any parting thoughts on the topic that you think, we didn't talk about that. Anything that we didn't cover?
I would think the hot topic this year is wean to market biosecurity. I think that continues to receive effort both for preparation for prevention of any sort of foreign animal disease, but also just on the bugs that we know we have. We can control a lot of those through good wean to market biosecurity. We have a tremendous room as farmers to improve on wean to market biosecurity. So start with a high health pig and then protect it through the wean to market phase with biosecurity. That's a great recipe.
All right. Good final thought to leave on. Adam Schelkopf, thank you for being here as the guest. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you some other time. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in, and join us next time on the next Swine Time podcast here at Pipestone. Swine Time podcast was created for the pork industry and individual pork producers around the country. Hosted by me, Dr. Spencer Wayne, with the Pipestone Veterinary Services. The podcast contains pork industry news, advancements in animal care, and how to enhance your productivity. Monthly podcasts are available on Spotify, Google Music, iTunes, Anchor, and on www.pipestone.com.